All right, folks, we're going to get started. Super excited to be here. This is Yusuf West from Hubdoc. Pumped to have Chad and Chris from LiveCA joining us today. As you know, we're going to talk about like building the dream team, and really what that comes down to is like, what are the hiring and coaching strategies that work in a cloud accounting environment, and in kind of a millennial-driven kind of culture where we're wanting to build great teams, and how do we do that with modern technology as well as with modern like a modern workplace, and LiveCA is a really great example of that. So let's jump in to a quick introduction. My name is Yusuf West. I lead marketing here at Hubdoc. I've worked in cloud accounting for a number of years. That's probably a phrase I never thought I would say, but really excited by the opportunities that exist in terms of automation and the change in the industry. I think automation can seem scary, but I think there's a lot of upside for all of us, just in terms of the quality of work that we're doing, being able to automate away a lot of the manual data entry as well as any other manual tasks, and being able to focus on higher level work. And I think that's an exciting prospect for everyone. So now I get the pleasure of introducing Chad. Hi, Chad.
Gotta get off mute. Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
So you want me to talk now, don't you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Chad. I'm one of the co-founders of LiveCA. All that means is just two guys started up a company that wanted to do accounting a little bit differently. Just really wanted to do it for ourselves. But what turned into was just something that we had no idea it could ever be. So the company at LiveCA, I guess we'll get into a little bit later. But from a background of mine, for me, I'm a CMA. I guess you can say they gave a CPA for that now in front of the CMA, but went to school for accounting, did accounting, but at the end of the day, it was just tech that kind of won our hearts. So when we started this company, I think you could say that the technology was more my focus and the tax was more my business partner Josh's focus. And from that, that's what just kind of started off the LiveCA name, and just looking forward to sharing with you a couple of things we've learned over growing the team, and happy to introduce Chris, who's a key part of that.
Chris.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Chad. I'm Chris from LiveCA as well. I'm LiveCA's onboarding and training manager. So I work with LiveCA's onboarding and training teams to onboard new customers and get them trained up, as well as new employees. So a big part of the role is involved in the hiring process, finding and recruiting, I guess, new talent, and then getting them up to speed with the team here.
Awesome. All right, so quick agenda items and kind of general housekeeping. Number one, this webinar is being recorded. So we'll share a recording with everyone who registered. So that's everyone here and anyone who wasn't able to make it. And then the second thing is, actually, let's talk about the agenda. So number one, we'll talk about how LiveCA thinks about hiring. We'll go into recruitment resources and tactics. So what they found has worked, what hasn't worked, kind of get into the nitty gritty. LiveCA's culture, I think, is one that is to be admired. And if you look at it from kind of bottoms up approach, interviewing and identifying the right people to become part of the team is really critical to building a great culture. And that's why we're going to talk about the soft skills that they care about, why they're important to LiveCA, and what that net result is from a culture perspective. Fourth, we'll talk about, or ask LiveCA about, I should say, the training on onboarding processes that they built. And Chris is really kind of the father of those processes and how they've been able to evolve them over time. And it's pretty cool. Like regardless of whether you're in accounting or a technology company like us, it's something to learn from, certainly. And then the fifth is building an awesome culture. Like LiveCA has not only been built from the ground up as a remote accounting organization, but they've been able to do it in a really fun way where they have a great group of people who are super engaged, and we'll talk about how they've been able to do that. So last housekeeping item, we're going to have, from the Hubdoc Twitter account, we'll be tweeting about great insights that we're all learning from Chad and Chris today on the hashtag LiveCA hiring. If you hear something that you really like, please tweet and share it along with this hashtag, and then we'll have a great repository of all the great insights that were shared. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully it'll just be webcams. So let's see that work. Can everyone only see the webcams? Confirming. Let me know in the question box. Yep. Awesome. Love it. Thank you. Okay. So give us, before we jump into kind of the questions, give us a little bit of background on, how old is LiveCA? Like, how big is the team today? Just a little bit of background on that.
Sure. So I know a lot of people are here to hear about the hiring piece, so keep this really short. We started in 2013, and there's, again, two people. Our very first person that joined us turns out was the most integral person to join the team. We had no idea how important it was going to be, but we're now 35-ish people and continually hiring. I think if we could be many more right now with the work that's out there now, we would. It's just a matter of being really controlled about it. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later on with Chris. But there's a really even mix of accountants, CPAs, technology people, admin and onboarding. That was a really core, philosophy around the company, was that we never wanted to be really over heavy or light on any one area, and being able to say that technology is important, but then backing it up with spending a lot of money on salaries to do that is another thing. So I think that's been something very, very important to us, is to grow that technology team and use that as something that really defines how we approach customer service and the type of work that we do. And that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that we do have sort of an even mix, and there's just as much emphasis on onboarding somebody and making them feel comfortable as there is to completing a really complicated tax return. So that's sort of the company in a nutshell. A little over 4 years old, and that's it.
Awesome. So as you guys have scaled, and you're continually growing the team, hiring for a bunch of positions, do you set hiring goals? How do you think about that?
It's a really good question. I mean, hiring goals are, you look back and you think that you have goals, or you think that you've had this master plan, but master plans rarely ever work out. So the way that we've sort of approached this is in little small stints. So 3 months, 6 months, and rarely is it longer than 6 months. So I wouldn't say that we have a master plan, or there's any type of specificity to exactly what we want. But I think as we get older and we learn more about the hiring process and the people that are coming on board, you just kind of, all of that stuff becomes second nature. So when it comes back to sort of setting hiring goals, we now know today what we need a lot more clearer than we did 3 months ago. But 3 months ago, we thought we knew more than we knew 3 months before that. So I think that was the key to us, is just kind of keeping it in small stints and being okay with being uncomfortable in the chaos. And that's, again, some of the things that we look for with the people that are here, is that you're building something. You're not coming into an established company where there are so many policies and procedures that it's almost daunting. But you have the responsibility to take over and be part of something that's, just maybe not bigger than yourself, but just you're building something that can help other people join as well. So that's sort of our approach to hiring.
Cool. So as you've gone to it's 35 full-time employees today?
Yeah. So again, another thing we didn't really believe in was the contractor model early on, but everybody's full time.
Yeah. And as you've scaled there, like what have been the kind of core hiring lessons? Like what have been the surprises?
The surprises are that if you don't follow the things that have worked for you in the past, they will break. So that is one of those things where you think that you're doing yourself a favor by cutting a corner, or by just letting something slip through that you probably shouldn't. For me personally, that's been the hardest thing, because you always want to go fast when the company's growing fast, but actually slowing down and doing the things that have worked, that have got you there, is pretty important. And that's why Chris plays such an important role in the company, because he is that order, and he is that methodical approach to making things work. So I mean, what do you think, Chris? What have you learned?
Yeah, that's pretty much it too. Trust your tests. So as you're going through and you're evaluating candidates, trusting the tests that you've designed to evaluate the key skills is really important. And when you don't trust those tests, and like Chad said, when you cut corners, that's when it kind of comes back on you. So yeah, trust the tests that you design.
What do you think, Chris, about that whole adage about like skill versus fit? How do you feel about that after being here for a few years?
I think fit is really important. For some skills, you can teach some skills. So it's, I guess, figuring out which skills that you're willing to teach and which ones are kind of inherent that are a lot harder to teach, and evaluating those and hiring based on those.
Cool. So like, let's dig into that core lesson of like cutting corners always kind of causes issues long term. When it comes to hiring, and kind of hiring slow is kind of the optimal approach. What was the tipping point for that? Was it something that like you just gradually kind of said like, oh, we saw this happen 3 times and therefore, we need to change our approach, or like how did that evolve?
I think each time we've had a situation where someone's left LiveCA or we've let someone go, we've always taken a really hard look at what we did through the hiring process and the testing that we did, and kind of like, what did we miss and how could we have addressed this particular character trait that led to someone leaving LiveCA? And we've, I guess, reevaluated our approach to hiring every single time, and tried to, if we miss something that time, we try not to miss it again next time by reevaluating how we're hiring.
Okay. Like, could we, without naming names, obviously, like, could we go through an example?
Sure. Like one, I guess, would be like communication styles. So we've had employees that interviewed really, really well, and we do trial work days after interviews with all of our, with every employee. So they actually get to come in, spend a couple of days with us. They're put through a number of assignments. They get to see what it's like at LiveCA, kind of meet the whole team. And we use those 2 days to really evaluate candidates. We had one candidate that interviewed really, really well, connected with the team, but on those trial work days, it was pretty clear that like writing communication was really, really poor. And we knew that, but we hired them anyway. So that kind of came back to bite us, because it was something that we tried to address through feedback and like working with them over the first few months here, but we didn't ever really see a change in like the writing style or communication style. So we ended up letting that person go, but we knew about that from the beginning. So we kind of, that's an example of like where we cut the corner. We didn't trust the test that we had designed, and we sort of said, no, like we really like them on the interview, but we know that they test really low in this area.
Gotcha. Okay, so you do a post-mortem, you identify, okay, this was the weakness that we had identified, but we ignored it. And now going forward, we're just not going to ignore it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it might be a good point now to just maybe talk, because Chris, you mentioned about the trial workday piece. The whole reason for, I guess, us being here too is to talk about what our hiring process is. So did you want to go through that now, Chris, and just kind of walk people through from start to finish, and then that kind of sets the stage for when we reference it later on.
Let's do it.
Sure. So I guess it all starts with the job posting, and we post a bunch of different places. I think Chad will talk about that more in a second, but everything from like different job boards across the country to actively like reaching out to like people through LinkedIn to just sort of scouring our own networks. Like even go back and reaching out to friends from high school has been awesome. So we kind of put the job ads out there. Applicants apply online. They come into a system where we can review and kind of triage applicants. From there, they'll get a one-way video interview using an app called Xero Talent. So essentially, 3 questions pop up on their screen. They've got about 2 minutes to prepare an answer, and then the app records them answering those questions. We change those questions up all the time. Everything from like kind of like a technical answer to like tell me about a situation when, to like what's your favorite city and why, or like where would you like to visit and why. So just trying to, I guess, really testing communication, get the candidates talking. From there, we'll screen those, and then they'll go to 2 like 20-minute interviews with different members of the team. Our whole team here is involved in hiring, so it's really like no like one person does every interview or 2 people does every interview. There'll be people from onboarding, people from tax, all over the place. Just like 2 different people will do an interview, and from there, assuming everything's good, we'll go to 2 trial work days. So trial work days are 2 paid days where they actually get to come spend the days with us. They go through an online course over those 2 days, and we've got a course designed for every position that we hire for, and it's using an app called Teachable. So essentially the days, like it'll walk through a number of assignments, so whether it be like writing assignments, bookkeeping assignments, tax assignments, like culture fit assignments, and all of those assignments are designed to test kind of the key skills for each position that we're hiring for. So if it's communication or judgment or like technical tax knowledge, they're all built into this course so that we can essentially evaluate the candidate on those. So it's kind of like giving them an option or an opportunity to actually like shine and show us what work they can do versus reading about it on a resume.
That's wicked.
So then, after those 2 trial work days, I guess first of all, before I move to the next step, a key piece of the trial work days is feedback. So that's why we do 2 days instead of just 1, because a lot of the apps that they're using on those trial work days or the work that they're doing is new for a lot of the candidates. So we evaluate all the work on day 1 and give them a ton of feedback. And feedback, like we really try to take a coaching approach to feedback. So kind of saying like, okay, here's where you went wrong on this assignment, and then helping to like put a plan in place for how they can correct that. And the goal is to see an improvement on day 2. So that's a big thing that we look for on the second day, because the tests on day 2 build on the tests on day 1. So if they mess up the judgment exercise on day 1, there's another opportunity on day 2 after they've got some feedback to kind of reevaluate it.
That's awesome.
At the end of day 2, that's when we make the hiring decision.
Cool. There's so many threads to pull on. So now that we have this full context, let's back up all the way to kind of the beginning of that funnel, like of finding talent. Like, where and when do you publicize open positions? Do you find that certain channels work better? Like, let's start there.
Okay. Even going back even further, I just want to say that trial work days, our very first one was with our very first person that ever got hired, and it wasn't our idea, it was his. So it was incredible. He's like, I don't know if I really want to work with you guys. Can I just check this out? Like, I just saw your ad on this thing, and I don't really know what's going on. Are you guys for real? So we originally brought him in to this basement with me and Josh, who came down because we just met for the first time after creating the company. And Dave, who was the very first guy, he came in, we had a desk set up for him. We thought that, the only way to train someone is to put them next to you. You cannot ever see anything about someone's personality online. And we've learned, like, from time and time again, that the biases that you keep are the things that hold you back. So we're constantly figuring out ways to identify what those biases are for each of us. When Chris says things like, our entire team is involved in hiring, what he means is, a select few, maybe 4 to 7 might be on the team that's interviewing, but it's those 4 to 7 that are incredibly trusted with helping on that position itself. So it may not be the same 4 to 7, but it's something that we've realized early on, that you do hold these biases. You have things that could possibly miss something incredible. So I really love seeing from day one, from who are you guys, should I even do this, to people kind of fighting to get it on trial work days. Like, it's such a cool progression, and it's just a testament to the entire team that's put a lot of work into these things, and Chris has played a huge part. So to go back to your question about like where do we get applicants, the answer is we hope applicants come, because I don't know if there's any right answer to say go here, you will get applicants. There's so much that goes into having someone open up and apply for a job, that as long as they're not just people clicking on Indeed going 15 job applications in 2 seconds, you put up barriers. So, where do we find people? LinkedIn Recruiter is one way, but it's not been the best way. It's just one tranche of a multi-faceted approach that we just hope something sticks. And I don't know if we're going to change that, because even if you found something that works, you're kind of shutting yourself out of some other possible avenues that you haven't thought about. We've done everything from using this $10,000 LinkedIn Recruiter tool that we bought, to me asking the waiter at Jack Astor's if he knew anybody that was looking for a bookkeeping job. I argue that both are equally as okay. Networks. Chris is the result of Dave working with him at the CRA. But at the same time, some of our coolest hires have just been people randomly finding us on job ads. So being remote has been really fun, because you can post in whatever city in LinkedIn you want, and whatever job board you want. And if in Saskatchewan, there's a specific job board that everybody goes to from the government, you're posting there because that's where everybody goes. But out west, Indeed's really popular. And I have mixed feelings on Indeed, but it's worked for some people. And, it's just to say, so I guess with that, did you want me to show you?
Let's dig into the trial work days a little bit. So one of the most interesting things about LiveCA's culture is primarily that it's entirely remote, right? So like, how has the trial work day evolved since, not everyone can go to Chad's basement and hang out for the day? So you mentioned you use Teachable. Like, what are the other resources? Like, is everything extremely scripted? Like, how does it work? Let's get into the details.
It is fairly scripted. I guess the goal, there's kind of a couple goals. One is to evaluate the candidate on our end, so to see them actually in action, to test out judgment and communication and like general techiness, like how fast they can learn new apps. So we throw a lot at them on those days. The other piece that's really important for trial work days is that to remember that the candidate's actually evaluating us as well. So we try to simulate as much as we can as to like what a real day would look like for them at LiveCA. So if we're hiring for a bookkeeping role, well, a big emphasis on those days is getting them actually into the apps that we use for bookkeeping, like Hubdoc, and getting them doing the work so that they can see what they're working. The other piece of that is that there is a lot of interaction with the team on those days. So even though we're all like remote, we're working virtually across the country, the social aspect of those days is huge. So they have a chance to meet people from like members of every team. So like Chad said, that there's kind of that small like 4 to 7 like hiring committee group. They get to have a chance to like sit down and really ask them anything they want about the company. So it's, there's still a big social part.
How does that work? Like I would like, if I was on a trial work day, unless it was explicit, like maybe it is explicitly mentioned, but I would be like sensitive about bugging other people and interrupting their days, right?
Yep.
Like how do you set that expectation?
So we use a couple apps to kind of kick the day off. We actually set up a Slack channel with the candidate and all of the members of that hiring committee that's kind of involved with their trial work days. So they get a message a couple days before, kind of letting them know all the information. So like, here's your link to Teachable. We'll meet first thing in the morning on your first day. So usually they'll hop on a quick half-hour call with Chad or I to kind of frame the day. And that we use Zoom a lot with our candidate to, I guess, for video meetings. And then the course actually walks them through the whole day, but throughout the day, we really encourage them to reach out to the team if they've got questions. And so people will just say like, oh, I'm free for 15 minutes. Have you got a chance to chat? And then they'll hop on a call and talk. Or if they get stuck on one of the assignments, like you can ask the team for help, right? So it's really, we try to keep everything public in that open channel so that we can kind of monitor what's going on.
Awesome. And you have like throughout the trial work days, I would imagine there's like set times for specific tasks, and those are kind of scheduled into the calendar.
Yeah. So we like an assignment, we kind of estimate, okay, this one should take about 45 minutes, but it's really up to the candidate to plan their own day. So we give them the tasks at the beginning of the day and say, here you've got to write this email, write this letter, do this bookkeeping. Here's how long each of these should take, and you're free to schedule your day however you want. At LiveCA, that's how we all kind of work. We're all kind of masters of our own work, and we can decide when work gets done and what order we do it in. So that's simulated in the trial days too.
Nice. And how do you like? Obviously, there is the interview process in advance of the trial work day. So do you have a good sense of like their cultural fit at that point, and you're just trying to validate with the trial work day? Like, what's the balance there?
Yeah, I think through the interviews we've got a really good sense of the cultural fit. The trial work days, I don't think often that if someone gets to trial work days, we know they're a cultural fit. But what we want to see is them in action. To see, like, you can say a lot of things on an interview, but the trial work days is really where you have your chance to shine, right? To like show that you actually have good judgment versus just saying you have good judgment. So
that's been really important for us too, because I think we put a higher emphasis on someone's personality in the beginning than we do their technical skills, which is why we don't send out tests. I don't believe in personality tests whatsoever, so we don't do those. When it comes to getting someone into an interview, it's because they passed the Kira talent too. And that's why I think one of the fun things that we've done in the past, like in probably the last year or two, is the very first interview isn't a grilling. It's to get them to feel good about joining your organization. So I hope that like what people take out of this is that there's a questioning component to that first interview. It's like giving them the first 15 minutes to just unload everything, get all of the things off of their chest, and answer all of the questions. Because if you started grilling them about tax rates in BC and what they want to do in 5 years, it's not going to give you anything. So for us, that's why giving them the floor in the first interview is really key.
So just so I understand, like the first 15 minutes of the first interview with LiveCA, it's actually the interviewee asking questions.
They're interviewing us.
That's wicked.
I hope that the people that join us, they don't feel forced or like there's no, like, they're just like, oh, I hope I make it to trial days. I wish, when you get it all out, you find where people's motives are. And I think if this starts during the hiring process and it transfers into the probationary period and it transfers into the whole culture here, why not start from day one versus starting when you start?
That's awesome. What's your guys' favorite interview question?
When can you start?
Chad, well played. That is really like the best question. You feel you can say that. But more seriously, like when you're trying to uncover like those soft skills that you look for at LiveCA.
I'll take it, Chris. You can think of that one. One of the ones that I don't normally break out all the time, but I think if there's a really interesting person that comes on board, kind of give a quick example of like some people close to me that have made a really big influence. You know, grandfathers, uncles, aunts, school teachers, things like that. And I don't know if this really sheds any. I mean, it probably sheds some good light. I just ask them to think about a person and describe them, and tell me a little bit about how they influence the way they think about life and about work, and why it's different for work and life. Because it's good to see where people, you know, conject there. Is work and life two different things? Is it the joining of one? What core values have kind of strengthened or actually supported them through the last few years as they've worked and as they've grown up? And some of the stories that people tell is just really inspiring. And maybe they're made up, maybe they're not. I hope they're not made up, but it's really cool to hear people, you know, open up only once you've gotten their trust. I think if you open that, like a question like that on question one, they'd probably leave. But at the very end of the interview, that's one of the more interesting ones that have. I wish the interviews were longer, just to talk about that with people.
Chris, you have a favorite interview question? The game of chicken.
Yeah, I like questions that dig into their motives for joining LiveCA, and kind of understanding like why they want to be a part of the team, and why they want to make like this career change at this point in their life. So those are the questions that I find really interesting, because it shows a lot. Like there's a lot of thoughtful answers there, but there's also a lot of, well, you know, I want to work from home, and there's a lot more to LiveCA than just getting to work from home. So it's like that's what I'm always looking for, is kind of like actually understanding the motivations of team members. Yeah, and it's more than just working from home.
So, like throughout your interview process, including the trial work days, like there's an emphasis on soft skills. How do you balance the need for soft skills with the need for experience? Is it an equal balance? Like, how do you guys think about it?
I don't think about it as soft skills versus experience. I think about it as soft skills versus technical abilities, or the ability to learn. Because if you treat soft skills a lot higher, we've run into situations where training is actually quite hard because we didn't test people's ability to soak in the information and then use it and then improve. So me personally, I put an equal emphasis on both, but instead of to be honest, I don't know if I actually make it to the bottom of most resumes. It's really just about how they write and what they're doing now, like what they're going through. Like one thing we didn't mention is that we use an applicant tracking system called Recruiter Box. We started using it in 2012. I remember April 2012. And it was an incredible introduction to this whole world of hiring I've never seen in my life before, because people can now email in, and not only can they fill out forms, you know, I wasn't in the HR field. I didn't know that there was these applicant tracking systems. So seeing something like this was just awe-inspiring. So we just started playing around with it, and you know, we've never had a place where people send in emails to an inbox. It's always just been, hey, apply on the website, and when you apply and you make it easy, there's a couple questions that we ask. And it doesn't even matter what the questions are. It just matters how people answer them. So, you know, is it thoughtful? Is it thorough? Is it well written? You know, that's the pre-indicators that help us decide if people go through. And the amount of people that just say work from home, you know, there's almost a 99% chance that they're not kind of going to get an interview, because to Chris's point, the motives aren't there. So be thoughtful, right? And I guess that's just with any job search, but using that tracking system has been the key to probably every single hire here. One of them anyway.
So with the mix of soft skills and like technical abilities, as like, let's say those are the two kind of vectors that you assess against. Like, how do you? I know there's kind of been a varied set of backgrounds at LiveCA, and how do you assess, like, if someone has good soft skills and like a willingness to learn and clearly an ability to learn, how do you assess kind of upside if you do assess that, or like potential?
think a lot of it comes from evaluating those traits on the trial work days. So if their motives are good and they know why they want to join the team, they're a cultural fit to the team, and they've got those skills to be able to learn, and they've like the drive to actually learn, we can teach them. Like a good example, I think, is our onboarding team. None of them came from a position at any other firm where they were onboarders. Like we've got graphic designers, we've got bartenders, teachers, but so like really varied backgrounds. But what they all had in common was like great communication skills and a desire to learn and an ability to learn at a really quick rate. So those are what we actually tested on trial work days, and like they didn't even come from accounting industries. So like a lot of what they're learning is all new, but they had that passion and drive to learn.
And like pulling on the thread of there's 2 trial work days, there's lots of feedback that's provided. I guess two-part question, Chris. Like number one, how is the feedback delivered? Like, is it written? Is it a Zoom meeting? And then the second is like, is your assessment of their ability to learn based on that kind of feedback process?
Yeah. So I guess the first part, the feedback is always given in a Zoom meeting. We'll usually provide like written feedback as well, just to kind of summarize, so that as the candidate's working through day 2, they've got a record of feedback from day 1. But it's always a discussion. Sending feedback over Slack isn't really well received. It's a lot better to have a conversation, and that way they have the opportunity to ask questions. The expectation is that feedback plays into day 2. So if it doesn't, that's not a good thing on trial work days. So if you're seeing the same types of themes on day 2 and they weren't corrected as a result of the feedback, that's not great. But if it is corrected and it is changed, that's amazing, because that's exactly what we want, because not everyone comes here as an onboarder at a cloud accounting firm. So the ability to take feedback and to make that change quickly is huge for us.
Remember, Chris, there was one person who I think we said no to after 2 days, but then we thought about it. We said, really, the only reason, this is where we started thinking a little bit more about the feedback piece and doing it earlier. So maybe we should have been a little bit more forthcoming with the feedback. And we gave her or him a test to do after the last trial work day. They took it home, they did it, and nailed it. And now they're a member of the team. Incredible team member. And we may have lost that if we let our biases, and our thoughts there come into play. So there's no silver gun here. There's silver bullet, silver gun. Funny, but yeah, it's just whatever works. You just gotta always question yourself, and that's been the one constant over the last 4 years. Is just challenging each other to say, should we really make this decision? Maybe we shouldn't. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
So I want to dig further into like that funnel of like onboarding and team culture and building an awesome culture. Before we do that, I just want to jump back to recruitment tactics just for a second. So you guys, like, let's just list off what are the channels that you recruit from. Like LinkedIn is obviously one. Indeed, referral from like employee networks sounds like the most impactful.
Anywhere, yeah. Don't forget Jack Astor's bartenders.
Of course, going to Jack Astor's. Can't forget that. And no. Is Jack Astor's in the States? I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, so for our American friends, if there isn't Jack Astor's, we're really sorry. It's a bar/restaurant. Any other channels that you guys leverage?
Look, we threw up an ad on Monday on Indeed, and I threw up 7 or 8 of them. 4 days later, we had over 1,100 applicants, and they had mostly all filled out the application. Crazy. But we've also done it on Indeed where we get no hits. So I don't know what's going on with that system, but for us, there's been a lot of, if we allow it to just press the one press and come in, almost nobody makes it through. So Indeed out west has been great. We've even hired people that have found us through Indeed. So it's been great, but it's also been horrible. So from that perspective, just know what you're getting into when you to go on that one. We always sponsor the ads, so we make sure that we're paying for them. You probably tell we take this really, really seriously. So what's an extra couple $100 for the right person? Nothing when you consider the alternatives. Maybe what we don't do too is just as important. We don't work with recruiters that want 20 to 35% of a person's salary. That's been pretty important for us not to engage in there. And it's not because we don't value what recruiters do, but it's just, I think we want the type of person to join us that is encouraged and like is motivated to learn and to try new things. And it's not about their experience. It's about, what they can be. So, for finding somebody through a recruiter to pay that much money extra has been really tough. Out east, there's a couple job boards that are really popular. I think one's called Career Beacon, and out west, BC Jobs is there as well, and some jobshop.ca types around the middle of the country.
Cool. So it sounds like overall strategy is cast a wide net, and then really, it sounds like there's a power law with it, right? Like the referrals from your team members are really what's going to drive the highest quality candidates overall.
Nope.
Okay.
No, there's no rhyme or reason, and we've accepted it. So I think we're just trying to think of new things, and that's it.
See what sticks.
Do webinars and tell people we're hiring and to apply.
By the way, on that note, where, like, if I wanted to work for LiveCA, where would I go find LiveCA job postings? Would I find it on the LiveCA website?
Right on our team page, there's videos of people at bear camps and Vegas mansions and retreats and just all kinds of stuff. You get to learn about all the team, and there's a bunch of job ads at the bottom.
So liveca.ca/jobs.
That would be easy. It'll be there later, but /our-team just to make it hard.
Yeah. Okay, and then jobs at the bottom. Okay, got it. First skill testing question, guys.
Writing the web guy now.
Yeah. Okay, so just being cognizant of time. So we've got about 5 minutes more before we should do put questions to the audience, and I can see we have a lot of questions, which is awesome. So, thinking about building an awesome culture, let's talk a little bit about kind of the corporate retreats, and what role do those play in making LiveCA an awesome place to work, and how does it impact kind of the remote culture as well?
Chris goes to them. Why don't you start?
Wait, Kat, do you mean you don't go to the?
I guess we do retreats twice a year, where the whole team comes into a location and kind of shuts off for 3 or 4 days, and actually gets together and there's a mix of work talk and then just hanging out with the team. So one of the things that you do lose with a remote team is that ability to go out for work on a Friday and grab a beer, or celebrate someone's birthday and have cake together. So the retreats are kind of our time to really get together a couple times a year and just have fun with one another. A lot of the talk ends up being about work and fixing little issues and addressing little things that come up throughout the year. But it's a really, really nice time for the team to kind of get together and recharge. It's really cool to see the energy that comes out of the retreats. Kind of everyone's revitalized and is ready to get back to work when they get back to their basement on Monday morning after a retreat.
How many corporate retreats have you guys done?
So we've tried to do 2 a year since we started. I remember renting one van and driving up to Algonquin, and that was great. We were in the woods. We got a tent. We bought enough food for 30 people, and we brought it all back to Josh's house, and it's probably still sitting in a bin there from 2013 or 14. But there's always been a retreat theme. So whether it's asking better questions or fixing or reviewing a book, we did E-Myth one time. Our very first retreat was Start With Why. Our last couple have been on leadership and what that means. And I think by having that theme, it also helps people talk about things they've never talked about before. And that's really what these are for. So Chris mentioned, it's now about getting together and just talking, because you never know what'll come out of it. But before, it was work. It was going to fix problems, because you're only a 1-year-old firm and you have lots of problems. And that's what we focused on. And that isn't now. Today, it's clear as mud that we shouldn't focus on problems. We should focus on each other. And that's what I'm incredibly excited about for every retreat that's coming up next, is that you get to talk to people that you don't normally get to talk about outside of work. And people in offices, you might get this. You have social events, like it's there, but with the remote side, we can't afford not to have big retreats every year, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be who we are, but the people wouldn't have the same relationships that they have. So working remote is hard. Working in person is hard. Work is hard. Life is hard. Just, I hope that.
We're going kind of dark now.
Yes. But I think if you think about what our job is, it's to not put barriers up in front of these people to do good work, feel they've made impact in the world, and they're actually working through good problems. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, which is why it's an easy decision to spend a lot of money on these things.
What do you guys think the next theme should be, or have you decided?
Q&A. 12 minutes left.
Sorry. I was talking about your corporate retreat, but thank you for directing this webinar. I really appreciate it.
What would you like to see, Chris?
I think leadership is a big one. It was kind of the theme of the last retreat too, but I think that's really important for us going forward.
Okay, last question before we go to Q&A, because Chad is ready to answer questions.
Need to pass off to Chris?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We all understood what I'm... What do you think are the core reasons people apply to LiveCA? What are the most appealing aspects to working there? And what drives recruitment other than people just wanting to work from home, right? What are the good reasons?
I think they see people's bios on the website, and not a lot of firms, let people write about themselves and do it thoroughly and, showcase them no matter what position they're in. I think that's been pretty important. A lot of people come in and say that, I spent the last 2 hours reading through your entire website. That's amazing. That's really, really, we're really thankful they do that. The Twitter feed showing that we're actually, doing more. I don't know how much accounting stuff we actually post. Probably none. Probably should do more of that. But it's about the people. So we're not putting any facades up. It really is about the people. So when people say customer first, I actually kind of think it's employee and team first, and that kind of brings the customers in. You can still be focused on what the customers want and price that way and do the right thing, but no one should ever make disrespect or hurt anybody in our team, and you've got to have each other's backs. So I think that comes through in the social messages that are being put out there, and maybe Chris has more to add to that.
No, I think that hit it right on the nail on the head, Chad.
All right, let's jump into questions. We've got so many here. So there was one question that came up right at the beginning that I thought was quite funny. It's sort of a question, but it's also a comment. LiveCA must not prep taxes since it's April 12th and they look relatively fresh. So it is tax season. LiveCA does prepare taxes. Why?
Let's just say
you guys look so good.
It's the first time someone's ever said that. Thanks. I think every year, if the focus is on getting progressively better, and that's what other people want too, it's going to happen. So it's taken 4 years for us to get to a point where people feel comfortable during tax season. Yes, people, still work long hours, but not as much as we did in year 1 and year 2 and year 3 and year 4. So it's been a gradual increase, and the end goal is to just work regular hour days, not do a tax season per se that is incredibly busy, because we're planning. We plan for this, so it's not a big surprise when January comes around and like, oh, we're busy. It's the fact that we know this is coming and we're always hiring. So right now you'll see like 5 or 10 jobs up on the website. That's what we're hiring for, because next year it's just going to be busier. So that's why.
And but like the other part of that reason is because you guys leverage cloud accounting tools, right? Like it's as much planning as well as what the technology enables. Is that a fair statement?
And how you use it too.
Yeah,
I think that's another whole discussion. But using your judgment into how detailed you need to be with procedures. It's not to say procedures aren't important. They are. They're that's what's gotten us here. But we're learning now that you still have to use some judgment into how far you go into following the same procedure for every person.
And what are the tools that have the greatest impact on LiveCA in terms of efficiency and enabling?
Hubdoc.
What?
No,
but like, really, like, what's the full tool set?
Go ahead, Chris.
Hubdoc, Xero, Receipt Bank are huge ones, and Dropbox as well are probably the main ones that let us streamline the accounting.
Okay, cool. And what role, like just on the technology front, last question on the technology side, what role does each team member play in deciding what technology gets used at LiveCA?
In the beginning, it's part of the sales process. But as you get to learn people better, there's a reason why I'll scope out new customers, but Chris will scope out existing customers. So they've been with us for a while. Chris is there working with the team, making sure that any changes that were from the first point of them coming on board, it's there. Something else we learned in a while. But yeah, in terms of getting those decisions, it's everyone, mostly on the tech side, because they're more, and associates and bookkeepers that are doing it for other companies that can see something that can be applied. So it's a comment, it's jobs, it's asking people's feedback. So everybody.
So a question here is, how do you manage the balance between kind of feeling the pain of needing to hire someone new, in terms of, there's too much work, it's becoming challenging to kind of get work done at a speed that you like and at a quality you like, and planning ahead. It sounds like you guys are more on the planning side, and how do you kind of think about that to make sure that revenue follows your hiring?
Sometimes you have to make hard decisions on whether you're chasing, a quote unquote profitable on the books business versus building something bigger than that. So there's been times in the past where we've made the decision to lose money and to take, an accounting loss to prep up, but it's paid off. And, those are just the decisions that you have to make. Like, what do you believe in? Do you believe in the team and what you're building, or do you chase the money? And do you just kind of do what's right for you? I don't know if there's a wrong answer. As long as you do what's right for you, then that's good. But what has been right for us is believing that we're building something that we can hope that, that more Chris's can join and more other accountants can join, right? To be part of. So that's why it's not, money isn't the driver. It's important. But you have to have belief and actually have new customers coming on board to support it. So I think if it's a struggling company, then you're kind of on the cusp. I can sympathize at how that would be a tough call to make.
When you guys hired Dave the first time, what was there a sufficient amount of business that you felt comfortable making that first hire?
Yeah, we had about 30 or 50 clients inside of 3 or 4 months when we first started from scratch, kind of. And at that point, I was doing a lot of the bookkeeping, and Josh was pumping out tax returns, and Dave was hired to be a bookkeeper. Now he's our tech director. I think he was our tech director after 3 weeks.
Chris, this one's for you. Do you find how like, how do people grow into kind of the remote work environment if they haven't had that experience in the past? Like, how do you coach people on it?
Sure. So that's a big part of our 3-month probation period that every new employee goes through. So the first, I guess, like day one, they meet with the team. They're also provided an Asana project. So it's like a task management project where we've spelled out what the goals are for every week during that probation period so that they have an idea of like what they're working on and what they're working toward. There's a lot of meeting with the team. We've got a buddy system in place for every new employee. So they're paired up with someone a little more senior that helps them through some of those issues from like working from home, managing your own workload, and how to communicate with managers, things like that. So they're paired up with a buddy, which is huge. But that's all tied into that like 3-month probation period, kind of getting them up and running.
And like, we didn't talk about this just because an hour is a short amount of time, but that probation period is not really like your traditional probation period when you start at a job, right?
No. So the probation period is an extension of trial work days. So all the things that we test on trial work days, like judgment and communication and like culture fit, that's all part of probation as well. So we're continually evaluating over the first 3 months. There's monthly check-ins with the manager, like kind of like monthly reviews at that point, tons of feedback, and a lot of shadowing, but also like doing work as well. So the goal of the kind of that onboarding of a new employee is get them up and running and actually contributing to the team as fast as possible, in a responsible way.
Like that whole feedback process, like so the probation period is 3 months.
Yeah.
Like it's what are kind of the positive experiences, and like let's talk a little bit about like what are the negative experiences as well. In terms of that probationary period, like, is it something that generally just, I would imagine like 95% of the time it goes pretty smoothly?
I think the big negative is when you try to go too fast and have too many courses or too many things where someone's working on their own. Hanging out in your basement all day by yourself can get kind of lonely. So we try really hard to make sure that there are like team meetings, that there's like buddy check-ins, that managers just reach out and say hi, and there's a lot of involvement from the whole team onboarding a new employee to like build the culture, build that personal relationship with the team. Because if you don't, it like really sucks. Just hanging out in your basement by yourself all the time.
So pulling on that thread a little bit, like how do you, so there's the onboarding process in terms of building the team cohesion. And then how do you think about like maintaining culture in a virtual environment?
We put a big focus on just reaching out to have conversations about things. So we use Slack for like chat messaging, but a chat, like it's really transactional when you rely on Slack for everything. So we put a big emphasis and we try to encourage everyone to just reach out and say, hey, check in, like see, how'd your son's soccer game go over the weekend, things like that. We also do some like kind of team events that like online over the course of the year. So I think every third Friday of each month, we do a beer and game. So it's like a Zoom chat where everyone hops on and you can, bring a beer or bring a glass of wine or coffee or water, whatever you want, and just hang out. We'll play games online for like together on a group call for an hour.
We also talking about like Warcraft, Starcraft, like what?
We usually do like the Jackbox party game. So it's like Fibbage and kind of like trivia, that kind of stuff online. Not everyone's into the war. Yeah. The other thing that's been really important that we've done a lot of over the last year are regional meetups. So like I'm in Edmonton in Alberta, and I think there's 5 of us out here now, and we'll get together, every few months and just have dinner or go grab a beer after work on a Friday, or go work at a co-working space together. For the team that's in Toronto, they'll go to a Jays game on a Saturday afternoon. So we really encourage everyone to kind of get together. If they're in the city, meet up and hang out, and we pay for it.
That's wicked. I swear to God, this is a question. What positions are you hiring for right now?
Bookkeepers, CPA students, CPAs that have a couple years experience that want to start leading their own teams, call them managers. We're hiring for virtual office managers right now. And I miss anything, Chris? I know we're hiring for multiples of those positions, but those are the big ones. So bookkeepers could use 5. If there's 5 of you out there that want to join, please apply. We would love that.
All right, last question, and then we're gonna wrap up. I like this. This is gonna be good. What has been your secret to attracting so many clients over the past 4 years?
We put people like Chris on Twitter and less like me. I don't know. I just hope that the vibe that comes out of every call that people have, whether it's through the very first phone call to the tones of the emails to the customers that they work with, every interaction is important. And I guess that's what you call a customer focus. It's like the Disney versus the McDonald's. And it's not to say McDonald's doesn't focus on customers, but Disney really focuses on customers. So they go above and beyond. And I think everybody here goes above and beyond. I can't think of a single person that just wouldn't give everything to make somebody's day, whether it's internal or external as a customer. And that just permeates. And there's no rigid things that you might have in some older institutions that, you know, actually are physical barriers. Keeping timesheets, running billable hours, you know, tracking people's performance based on metrics that have no correlation whatsoever to customer happiness and actual output of work. Focusing on minute calculations versus like the bigger picture. Those are the things that we sort of teach our customers and our, you know, the team members that are here, and they teach us as well, and they teach our customers. So I think every micro transaction adds up to an opinion, and that opinion, I hope, is what keeps people wanting to join, whether it's an employee or a customer.
How many of your guys' clients have come from referrals?
Probably 40%.
It's pretty phenomenal. So, John, that was the secret. Referrals. No, but like, it sounds like overall the core focus is deliver amazing experiences for your customers, deliver amazing experiences for your employees. And that's going to drive more great people to be at LiveCA and drive more great clients to want to work with LiveCA.
We hope. Our goal isn't to be, you know, the big 4. It's not to stay where we're at. It's just to end up wherever we end up, knowing that we're doing the right things at the right time for the right people. And if you keep that type of focus versus trying to hit numbers or think that, you know, the number of employees you have is a function of how successful you are, you'll lose the whole point. So that's why I know Chris is probably fidgeting because he's like wanting to get on the call right now with a customer. But that's the kind of attitude it is too, which is just do what's right in the moment.
That's awesome. You're like the Zen Buddhist of cloud accounting.
More Buddhist or Buddha.
All right. So we'll wrap it up so Chris can get on that call. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. A lot of comments about how all of this has been gold. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Anytime.
Well, liveca.ca, not /jobs, liveca.ca /our-team. All right. Thanks, everyone.